You think you can kidnap my father and play the angel? You piece of utter trash." The words weren't just spoken. They were hurled, slicing through the humid Detroit air like shards of broken glass. They were harsh, loud, and utterly unforgiving, a sonic boom of pure, undiluted rage. Mia Carter froze, a still warm Tupperware container clutched in her hand, the frail old man clinging to her arm like she was the last solid piece of ground in a world that had turned to water. She blinked, her mind struggling to catch up. "Excuse me?" Alex Sterling didn't blink. His eyes, the color of a winter storm, were ice-cold and sharp as surgical steel, drilling into her as if she were a cornered criminal holding a hostage. "Step away from him. Now." Mia lifted both her arms, palms facing out in a universal sign of surrender. "Wait, wait," she pleaded, her voice a fragile thread against his roar. "I found him 2 days ago. He was sitting all alone at a bus stop. He didn't even know his own name. Orsakos an tautum." Before she could finish, before reason could find a foothold, Alex's fist flew. It wasn't a slap. It was a raw, wild punch, a haymaker born of terror and fury that landed across her cheekbone with a sickening crack that echoed in the sudden silence. Mia stumbled, collapsing to the gritty sidewalk, a warm trickle of blood blooming at the corner of her lip. Shock, pure and absolute, washed over her face, momentarily erasing all other expressions. The old man cried out, his voice thin and reedy. "Don't hurt Mia! She helps me!" Gasps erupted from the small crowd that had begun to gather, drawn by the commotion like moths to a destructive flame. A woman nearby whispered into her phone. "Did he just hit her? Is that the billionaire guy, Alex Sterling? Is she his father's nurse?" "No," a man beside her countered, his phone already live-streaming. "He says she kidnapped the man." Phones came out, screens lit up. TikTok was already on the case. Dazed, Mia pushed herself up onto her elbows. "I found him," she repeated, her voice hoarse, tasting the metallic tang of blood. "Sitting alone near the bus stop. He didn't know his name. He was cold. I helped him." Alex pointed a trembling, accusatory finger straight at her, shouting like a prosecutor in a courtroom drama. "Helped him? Is that what you call keeping him hostage in your filthy little apartment? You drugged him, didn't you? So he'd be compliant." "I didn't," Mia's voice cracked, shattering into a million pieces. Her knees wobbled as she tried to stand, her hands trembling, stained with her own blood. The wail of sirens sliced through the air, growing closer, louder. 3 police cruisers screeched to a halt, and uniformed officers swarmed the scene, creating a chaotic perimeter. "He assaulted her," one bystander yelled out, pointing at Alex. "She kidnapped my father," Alex snapped back, his voice a whip. "She's been hiding him for 2 days. He has Alzheimer's." The police hesitated, their gazes torn between the bleeding woman on the ground and the furious, impeccably dressed billionaire. The old man, the one Mia had been calling Mr. S, mumbled, his mind adrift. "Mia gave me soup. I like the crunchy peanut butter she puts on the toast." "Sir, step away from the suspect," an officer ordered Alex. He moved toward her again, a predator closing in, but another officer intercepted him, pulling him back. "Sir, we've got this. I want her arrested, now!" 2 officers grabbed Mia's arms, twisting them behind her back with practiced efficiency. Cold metal snapped around her wrists. "This is a mistake," she cried out, the words choked by tears of pain and disbelief. "I didn't do anything wrong." Alex watched, breathing hard, a smear of her blood on his knuckles, his jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. The old man, Samuel Sterling, looked on, his eyes filling with tears of pure confusion. Why? Why is Mia crying? This is a story that started with an act of kindness and ended in a nightmare. If you believe a single act of compassion shouldn't be met with violence, hit that like button to show your support for Mia. And let us know in the comments what city or state you're watching from. You might be surprised who else in your town is watching this unfold right now. 2 days earlier, Samuel Sterling had broken free. He wasn't entirely sure how. The door to the dusty warehouse room had been left ajar. The man with the cigar tattoo had stepped away to take a call, and the others hadn't heard him shuffle barefoot down the concrete hallway. They'd taken him for ransom. His son, Alex, was supposed to pay, but something had gone wrong. He'd wandered for hours, maybe a whole day, dazed and confused, the city a blur of unfamiliar shapes and menacing sounds. He wasn't Samuel Sterling, the retired architect. He was just a lost old man, unsure where he was or how to get home. Samuel Sterling had wandered, barefoot and mumbling, into Mia Carter's world. Broken, drenched from a sudden downpour, and barely conscious. He'd collapsed at a city bus stop, trembling and soaked through, whispering the only word that still held meaning, a lighthouse in the fog of his mind. Alex. Alex. Mia had passed by on her way home from a late shift at the nursing home. Most people would have crossed the street, tucking their chins into their collars and quickening their pace. She had crouched beside him instead, wrapping him in her own thin coat, and called 911. When help never arrived after an hour of waiting in the deepening chill, she did what she had always done. She helped. She brought him home to her small, clean apartment, bathed his blistered feet, fed him oatmeal with too much brown sugar because he winced at bitterness, and let him sleep on her couch with her rescue cat, Patches, curled on his chest. She didn't ask for anything in return. She had no idea the man on her sofa was the father of a billionaire tech mogul. No idea a citywide manhunt was underway. No idea she was moments away from becoming the next face plastered across every news broadcast in America. At the precinct, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. Mia sat on a cold metal bench in a holding cell, her lips swollen, her cheekbone a symphony of purple and blue, her heart shattered. Hours bled into one another. No visitors, no phone calls. The media, fed by Alex Sterling's PR machine, smeared her without mercy. Stranger claims to rescue billionaire's father. Is she a scammer? One headline blared. Another, more insidious one read, Who is Mia Carter? What we know about the woman behind the disappearance. The article painted her as a troubled loner with a history of financial instability. She lost her job at the nursing home, pending investigation. Her landlord stopped answering her calls. Her neighbors, who once greeted her with a smile, now closed their doors when she walked past. 3 days later, the metal door of her cell creaked open. Carter, a gruff voice called. She looked up, her spirit worn thin. A woman in a sleek black suit entered, holding a manila envelope. Name's Janelle Hayes. I'm a lawyer. Your friend Susan from the Garden View Retirement Center called me. Said you took care of her grandmother last year like she was your own. Mia nodded, a flicker of hope barely daring to catch fire. Someone still remembered her. Janelle sat down. I pulled the footage from 3 security cameras along East Jefferson Avenue. Guess what it shows? She paused for dramatic effect. It shows you finding Mr. Samuel Sterling alone, barefoot, soaked in the rain, and collapsing. It shows you calling 911 and waiting for an hour. It shows you helping him when no one else would. That afternoon, in a sterile conference room at Sterling Tech headquarters, Janelle played the footage again. This time, the audience was Alex Sterling, his entire legal team, and 2 carefully selected reporters. On the massive screen, Samuel was seen shivering on a bench under a flickering streetlight. Mia approached slowly, offering him her coat, a cup of tea from her thermos, her gentle presence. There were no traps, no manipulation, no signs of a kidnapping. There was only raw, unvarnished kindness. Alex Sterling's mouth parted slightly, his face draining of all color. The arrogant fury was gone, replaced by a creeping, sickening horror. He said nothing. "You assaulted her," Janelle said, her arms folded, her voice as sharp and clear as a bell. "Publicly, on camera. You called her trash, smeared her name across every media outlet in the country. And what did she do?" Janelle pointed at the screen. "She kept your father alive." The reporters took notes furiously. Alex struggled for words, his mind a maelstrom of regret. "I didn't know." "She told you," Janelle snapped, her patience gone. "You just didn't listen." Later that day, Mia was released from custody without a word of apology from the city. Alex waited outside the courthouse, his suit perfectly pressed, his face a mask of contrition. He held a certified check in his hand. "I want to offer you compensation," he said, avoiding her eyes. "For what I said. For the harm I caused. I was wrong." Mia looked at the check. 7 figures. Enough to change her life forever. Then she looked back at him, her lip still scabbed, her cheek still bruised, but her pride fiercely intact. "No," she said, the single word hanging in the air between them. Alex's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. "No?" "I didn't help your father for money," Mia said, her voice steady and clear. "And I don't want your guilt check." Alex blinked. I want to make this right." She finally looked him dead in the eyes, and for the first time, he saw not a criminal, not a victim, but a woman of immense, unbreakable strength. "You don't fix something like this with money," she said. "You fix it by learning to look past your own assumptions and see people for who they really are, not who your fear expects them to be." He opened his mouth, but found no words. She turned and walked away, her shoulders high, her steps measured. Mia walked down the courthouse steps into the warm, forgiving light of the late afternoon. For the first time since it all began, she walked freely, not just from custody, but from the shame someone else had tried to place upon her. Behind her, Alex Sterling remained frozen on the steps, the check still in his hand, a monument to a lesson he was only just beginning to understand. 2 days earlier, the rain had battered the cracked sidewalks of West Detroit like a slow, steady war drum. The city had gone quiet in that way it only did when the sky turned a bruised gray and the wind warned people to stay inside. But Mia Carter wasn't inside. She was walking, her umbrella half broken, her hoodie soaked, the plastic grocery bags biting into her wrists. It had been a long day at the community kitchen where she volunteered on her days off. 3 shifts, back to back. Her feet ached, her stomach groaned. The streetlights flickered, as if they, too, were too tired to fight the encroaching dark. She rounded the corner near the bus stop on 38th and Lexington when she saw him. An old man, sitting on the cold metal bench with no shoes. His socks were soaked through, one of them halfway torn, his pale toes poking through the fabric. He clutched a tattered blanket around his shoulders like it was his only armor against the world. His eyes were glassy, vacant. He was rocking slightly, whispering something over and over under his breath. "Alex, Alex, Alex." Mia slowed, her every instinct prickling. Most people would have walked past. Hell, she should have. She had soup to make, laundry to do, a call to return to the bank about the overdraft fees that were piling up again. But something about the man's posture, the way he trembled like a single leaf about to be torn from a branch, stopped her cold. She stepped closer. "Sir, are you okay?" He didn't look up. She crouched down in front of him, her knees growing wet against the pavement. "Do you know where you are?" "Alex." His voice cracked, no louder than a breath. "Is that your name?" "Alex?" she asked gently. His chapped lips quivered. No. I'm looking for Alex. My boy. Mia's heart tightened. The man didn't just seem lost. He seemed gone. Like someone had opened a door inside his mind, and everything that made him who he was had simply slipped out into the rain. You're freezing, she murmured. Come on, let's get you somewhere warm. He flinched when her hand touched his arm. It's okay, she reassured him, her voice low and soothing. I'm not going to hurt you. My name's Mia. I live just 2 blocks down. I've got hot soup and a heater. You'll be safe. He stared at her then, truly saw her, as if she were the first person who had spoken to him in a decade. Slowly, painfully, he let her help him up. Back at her small, 1-bedroom apartment, Mia gave him a towel, a fresh pair of sweatpants that had once belonged to her late uncle, and a steaming bowl of lentil soup. He devoured it like he hadn't eaten in days. What's your name? She asked. He paused, the spoon halfway to his lips. I don't know. That's okay, she said softly. We'll figure it out. She called him Mr. S, short for Samuel, though she didn't know that yet. It just felt right. She let him sleep on the couch. He talked in his sleep, flinching at imaginary sounds. She placed a worn but clean blanket over him, turned the space heater on, and kept the hallway light dim so he wouldn't be in total darkness. That first night, he cried out in his sleep, and Mia sat in the armchair nearby, watching over him like a silent guardian. The next morning, Mia made scrambled eggs and toast. Mr. S stared at the plate like it was a priceless treasure. He spoke a little more that day, random thoughts, half-formed memories. The lake house. She wore a yellow dress. Alex hated fishing. None of it made sense, but Mia listened and nodded anyway. She posted a note on the local missing persons forum online, including a vague description, but no photo. He was too scared for that. She figured maybe someone in the community would recognize him. Or maybe, if she was lucky, he'd remember something himself. The news was playing faintly on her cracked TV set when it happened. An anchor's serious face filled the screen. Samuel Sterling, father of tech billionaire Alex Sterling, was reportedly abducted 3 nights ago. The kidnappers demanded a $5 million ransom. Authorities have not confirmed whether the money was delivered. Police now fear foul play. Mia turned, bowl in hand, and looked at the screen. The photograph that flashed across the broadcast nearly made her drop the spoon. It was him. Same kind eyes, same weary posture, just in a tuxedo instead of her borrowed sweatpants. She froze, the world tilting on its axis. If you can feel the shock and fear coursing through Mia in this moment, hit the like button right now to show your support. And don't forget to comment with the city or state you're watching from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching this story along with you. That night she debated going to the police. But something inside her, a protective instinct she couldn't explain, told her to wait. Something about the way Mr. S trembled when the phone rang, or the way he hid behind her when the mailman came to the door made her stomach twist. He wasn't just lost. He was terrified. Then came that fateful day. She had just returned from the community garden with a bag of fresh tomatoes when the black SUV rolled up. Men in suits, police sirens, cameras, and Alex Sterling. She didn't even have time to set the tomatoes down before she was bleeding on the sidewalk. Now, sitting in a hospital room with a split lip and a silence thick as mud, Mia stared at the ceiling. Her lawyer friend, Marcus, sat beside her, flipping through paperwork. They dropped the charges, he said. No formal apology, but they're dropped. Because of the video? She asked, her voice flat. He nodded. Store cam, bus cam, a neighbor's doorbell cam. All time-stamped. It proves you weren't even near him during the abduction. The timeline shows he must have escaped before the ransom call was even made. Marcus continued. They arrested 2 suspects this morning. Ex-employees from a private care facility. Looks like they snatched him during a transport. They planned the whole thing, but he must have fought back and gotten loose. He ran and ended up on that bench. And I was the only one who stopped, Mia whispered. Yeah. And it got you punched in the mouth, Marcus said bitterly. He looked at her. Alex Sterling wants to meet. I don't care. He's offering significant compensation. No, I really don't care. He sighed. Are you sure you want to walk away from all that? It could change your life. Mia turned to the window, watching a slow drizzle begin to fall over the city again. Tell him he can keep his money and his cameras and his high-powered lawyers. Tell him I don't want anything from him. What do you want then? Mia watched the rain wash over the city streets, cleaning the grime from the pavement. I want him to live the rest of his life knowing that a complete stranger did more for his father in 2 days than he had in 2 decades. I want him to live with that debt. Marcus said nothing. She smiled sadly. That's a debt he can never repay with a check. Outside, the rain felt like a forgiveness that hadn't quite arrived yet, but Mia wasn't waiting for it anymore. The next morning, sunlight sliced through the blinds of Mia's tiny kitchen like a gentle apology. It was the first dry day in a week. The city outside was still stained with yesterday's pain, but in Mia's small home, things had quieted. Mr. S., Samuel Sterling, was awake early, sitting at the kitchen table in the same old sweater Maya had loaned him. He was staring out the window, murmuring softly to himself, his fingers wrapped around a chipped coffee mug Mia had filled with chamomile tea. She poured herself a cup and joined him. Sleep okay? She asked gently. He nodded, though his eyes were distant. I dreamed of ducks on a lake, he murmured. The water was quiet. My boy used to feed them breadcrumbs. Mia smiled softly. Sounds peaceful. I think I remember the smell of pancakes. He turned to her, his eyes focusing on her for a moment. You ever been to Lake Orion? She blinked. Once, as a kid, on a school trip. I had a cabin there, he said slowly, the words forming with effort. Before the company. Before everything. My wife, my Martha. She used to burn the pancakes on purpose, said it gave them character. Mia froze. It was the first time he'd said a full name. Martha? He nodded again, a flicker of memory illuminating his face. She had laugh lines, deep ones. Her eyes would disappear when she smiled. That sounds beautiful. She's gone now, he whispered. I remember the funeral. I wore the wrong tie. They sat in silence for a moment, 2 souls tethered by loss, but bound by an unlikely kindness. Then he looked at her, his expression clouded with a childlike worry. Am I in trouble? Mia shook her head, her heart aching for him. No, Mr. Sterling. You're safe now. The people who hurt you, they've been arrested. He frowned, trying to piece it together. Why would anyone want to hurt an old man? Her throat tightened. Sometimes people think money is worth more than lives. He considered that for a long time, then sighed. That's wrong. Yes, she agreed softly. It is. A knock at the door startled both of them. Mia opened it to find a woman in her mid-60s with a leather-bound notebook, her expression professional but warm, standing beside Marcus. This is Dr. Peterson, Marcus explained. A memory specialist. Alex Sterling asked her to come. No pressure. Mia hesitated, but Dr. Peterson stepped forward. I'm only here to talk, if Mr. Sterling is comfortable. Inside, Samuel's eyes lit up with a strange recognition of something familiar, though he couldn't place it. Do I know you? He asked. No, she said kindly, kneeling beside his chair. But I'd like to. The session lasted for over an hour. Mia sat nearby, quiet, listening to the gentle questions and watching as Samuel's memory was stretched like a limb, long unused. She learned his birthday was in October. His high school mascot was the Trojans. He once ran track. He bought Alex his first computer when he was 10 and taught him how to code in BASIC. He hated it, Samuel chuckled, a genuine warm sound. Said it was boring, until he made a game out of it. Dr. Peterson scribbled notes quickly. That's a significant memory. He won the science fair with that game, Samuel continued, his eyes far away. I was so proud. But I didn't say it enough. Afterward, as the doctor packed up, Mia walked her to the door. Is he getting better? Dr. Peterson smiled softly. Memories are like fireflies. They come and go, but he remembers the important things. That's something. That afternoon, Mia received a formal letter delivered by courier. Dear Ms. Carter, I owe you more than I can ever repay. My name is Alex Sterling. I have spent most of my life building systems that run on logic, data, and control. What happened with my father was a failure of every system I thought I understood, especially the one inside myself. I failed him, and I failed you. I know you don't want my money, but I'm offering you something else. A partnership. My foundation, Sterling Futures, is launching a new community initiative. Support for grassroots caregivers, advocates, and underfunded community health workers. I want you to lead it. Not because of pity, but because you saw what no one else did, a human being in need. You saved my father. And in doing so, you reminded me what humanity looks like. Please consider it. Sincerely, Alex. Mia sat with the letter for a long time. She reread it twice. Then she folded it and placed it beneath her radio, the same one she used to play jazz from while cooking for Samuel. The next day, she took Samuel out for a walk. The air was crisp, and the leaves were beginning to turn shades of fire. They walked slowly, her arm hooked gently through his. Children played on the sidewalk. A man grilled hot dogs on a corner cart. Someone called out, "Hey, Mia, bless your heart, girl." She smiled. People were starting to see her again, for who she really was. Samuel stopped in front of a small, dusty bookstore. That one, he said, pointing. Martha loved that place. You want to go in? She asked. He shook his head. Just wanted to see it. They stood together in silence for a moment. After a while, he asked, Do you think my son still remembers the lake? I think he remembers more than he lets on. Samuel looked up at her. He used to be gentle. Maybe he still is, she offered. Just buried under a lot of noise. Samuel sighed. That's the thing about noise. Eventually, you have to choose whether to shout over it or listen through it. Mia smiled. Sounds like something Martha would say. He chuckled softly. She was wiser than both of us put together. They began to walk again, slow and steady. Behind them, a man watched from across the street. Alex Sterling, in jeans and a coat far too casual for his usual persona. He didn't approach. He just watched, his eyes wet with an emotion he couldn't name, a question in his expression he hadn't yet figured out how to ask. Later that evening, Mia stood on her small porch as the sun dipped low behind the city. Marcus arrived with 2 coffees, one for her, one for himself. You get his letter? He asked. Yeah. You gonna take the job? I'm thinking about it. He looked at her. It's a big thing, Mia. Big budget, real impact. I know. She sipped her coffee and looked out at the street, at the cars passing, at the old men playing dominoes near the corner store. I'm not here to fix broken billionaires, Marcus, she said, but maybe I can build something that helps the people they forget. He nodded slowly. That's one hell of a reason to say yes. Mia looked down at her hands. Strong, calloused, capable. Then she looked up at the sky, and she remembered the man with no name, sitting alone at a bus stop in the rain. She remembered that all it took to change a life was a little soup, a little time, and someone who cared enough to stay. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was the start of everything. The invitation came on a Tuesday, printed on heavy ivory cardstock, delivered in a discreet black envelope. Sterling Futures Community Summit. Private session. Vision and founders. At the bottom, her name, Mia Carter, was printed in gold lettering, as though she had always belonged there. She stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to laugh or rip it up. Marcus sat on her sofa, legs crossed, sipping sweet tea. "You said you wanted to make a difference. There's your seat at the table." "It's his table," Mia muttered. "He's just pulling out a chair to look generous." "Maybe," Marcus shrugged. "But maybe he's finally realized the room was empty without people like you." She didn't reply. Instead, she folded the invitation in half, slid it into her notebook, and said nothing more. 3 days later, she stood in front of the Sterling Foundation's headquarters in downtown Detroit. The building was sleek, all glass and steel and money, the kind of place that looked like it cost more per hour to maintain than her entire block earned in a week. A security guard waved her through with a respectful nod. Another staff member in a navy blue blazer escorted her to a private conference room on the 18th floor. Inside were 6 people, all seated at a long oak table. Alex Sterling stood at the head, hands clasped behind his back, his posture rigid. When Mia walked in, everyone turned. Alex didn't smile, he didn't nod, he simply gestured to the empty seat directly across from him. "Thank you for coming." Mia sat slowly, her spine straight, her eyes forward. She felt every gaze on her like a spotlight. The woman to her right, a Dr. Helen Morris who founded a grassroots trauma clinic, offered a small, knowing smile. "Been wanting to meet you. Word gets around fast." Another man, clearly a former city councilman, leaned in. "You're the reason this whole initiative exists." Mia gave a polite nod, unsure whether that was a compliment or a burden. Alex cleared his throat. "Let's begin." What followed was an hour of intense discussion about real issues, real numbers, food insecurity, elder neglect, the critical shortage of home-based caregivers in marginalized communities. It was more than performative charity. It was groundwork, strategy, planning, and every time Mia spoke, suggesting a mobile support unit, proposing partnerships with local churches, challenging a proposal to use city metrics that often overlooked undocumented residents, Alex listened. Not like a CEO waiting for his turn to correct, but like a student learning from someone who had lived what the reports could only summarize. Afterward, as the others filtered out, Alex approached her with a tablet in his hand. "These are the preliminary grant applications. I'd like you to review them. The team, we want you to co-lead the distribution." Mia took the tablet, but didn't look up from it. "Why me?" He hesitated, the silence stretching between them. "Because you care," he finally said, "and because you're already doing the work. All we're doing is trying to catch up." She finally met his eyes. "You're not trying to fix me anymore?" "No," he said quietly, his gaze unwavering. "I'm trying to fix myself." She gave a slow, deliberate nod. "Good. Start with your father." That evening, Mia returned home to find Samuel sitting on the porch, watching the sunset with a blanket draped over his knees. Her cat, Patches, was curled up beside him like a loyal sentry. "Long day?" he asked, his voice stronger than it had been a week ago. "You could say that." She sank into the rocking chair next to him. "You remember the lake house?" He smiled faintly. "Some days I do. Some days it's just a feeling." Alex is trying, she said after a beat. He's building something, not just for the cameras. Samuel chuckled softly. He always needed to build. Blocks, Legos, code, now systems. He still has a lot to learn. Then he's lucky you were the one to teach him. She looked at Samuel, unsure how to respond. He turned to her, his eyes steady and clear. You gave me more in 2 days than some people get in a lifetime, he said. You saw me when I couldn't even see myself. He blinked hard, a glint of moisture in his eyes. Thank you, he added, for the soup and the silence. Later that night, Mia pulled out the tablet. Names, organizations, proposals. There were dozens of them. Stories of underfunded shelters, burnt-out social workers, high school kids running food drives out of their garages. She saw herself in those applications. She saw Samuel. She saw her own mother, who once cooked extra portions just in case a neighbor knocked on the door with an empty stomach. She spent the whole night reading. By morning, she had detailed notes on all of them. Weeks passed. The initiative launched under the name The Lantern Project, a name chosen by Mia. A lantern doesn't fix the night, she explained at the press release. It just helps you see your way through it. Funding poured in. Local partnerships grew. Mia became a voice on radio panels, at town halls, sometimes even interviewed on TV. Not as a victim of mistaken identity, but as a leader with a vision. But with every success, she kept her feet planted firmly on the ground. She still visited the shelter on Tuesdays, still helped at the soup kitchen, and still walked with Samuel every morning. They passed the bookstore and the park, where children now shouted, "Hi, Mia!" One day, as they passed a mural that had recently gone up, an image of Mia helping Samuel at the bus stop, he stopped. Is that us? She nodded. He looked at the painted version of himself, fragile and lost, and then at her, calm and focused. I don't remember that moment, he admitted softly. That's okay, she said, her voice gentle. I remember it for both of us. He squeezed her hand. One Sunday afternoon, Alex came to visit. He brought no entourage, no assistants, just himself in a hoodie and jeans, holding a single framed photograph. He found Mia and Samuel on the porch sharing sweet tea. I thought you might want this, he said, handing the photo to his father. It was from decades ago. Alex, at age 10, holding a fish almost as big as his arm, grinning from ear to ear, with Samuel standing behind him, laughing. Samuel stared at it for a long time. That was the day you fell in, he said, a smile spreading across his face. Alex laughed, a real, unburdened laugh. Yeah, you pulled me out, then gave me hot chocolate and told me I was stronger than the river. I did, didn't I? Samuel said, his voice caught somewhere between awe and memory. They shared a quiet moment, father and son. Then Alex turned to Mia. I'm still not sure how to thank you. You don't need to. But I want to. She looked at him steadily. Then don't thank me with words. Keep listening. Keep building. Keep choosing the harder path when it's the right one. He nodded slowly. I will. Good, Mia rose. Now help your dad inside. It's getting cold. As the two Sterling men walked inside, Mia remained on the porch, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The world hadn't changed overnight. Injustice hadn't vanished. Greed hadn't disappeared. But something had shifted. A chair had been pulled out at the table, and this time, it had her name on it. The Sterling Future's annual gala was not the kind of event Mia ever pictured herself attending. Held at the historic Detroit Institute of Arts, it was an evening soaked in opulence. Floor-length gowns, perfectly tailored tuxedos, champagne towers, and white-gloved waitstaff whispering, "Madam" and "Sir," like it was the only language they'd ever known. Mia stood near a statue of a Greek goddess, wearing the only evening dress she owned. a simple navy blue gown, with borrowed earrings and her late mother's tarnished silver bracelet. She felt out of place among the designers and donors, the clinking glasses and curated smiles. But she didn't flinch. She belonged here now, even if she hadn't been invited for the same reasons they had. From across the marble floor, Alex Sterling spotted her. He excused himself from a conversation with 2 state senators and made his way over, nodding politely as he passed other guests. "You clean up well," he said lightly, offering her a glass of sparkling water. She took it, raising an eyebrow. "And you still look like you're trying to sell me software." He chuckled. Guilty. There was a pause between them, comfortable now, not strained. "This night's about you, you know." "No," she replied, her gaze sweeping over the glittering crowd. "It's about the people who aren't here, the ones who can't afford a dress or a ticket, the ones building change with duct tape and borrowed vans." He nodded solemnly. "They're the reason we're funding the next wave. Grassroots-led, boots-on-the-ground initiatives only." "Good." She took a sip of her water. "Just don't let the suits forget that when the cameras are gone." Before he could reply, a voice cut through the noise, low, cold, and entitled. "Well, if it isn't the savior of the slums." They turned. Standing a few feet away was a woman draped in red satin, wine in hand, diamonds dripping from her ears. Linda Moore, executive director of a powerful East Coast charity known for legacy philanthropy, which was code for old money and even older ideals. Mia didn't blink. "Evening." Linda gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I heard your little project is doing wonders with, what is it, soup kitchens and bus tokens?" Alex stiffened beside Mia, but she remained calm. "Sometimes the smallest things save the biggest lives," Mia said, her tone even. Linda's laughter tinkled like breaking glass. "Touché." She turned her focus entirely to Alex. "We should talk about merging your little venture with our foundation. Give it real reach." Mia placed her glass down on a nearby tray. "If by reach you mean swallowing it whole, then no thank you." Alex cleared his throat, stepping forward slightly. "Actually, Linda, Mia leads the Lantern Project. Any proposal of that nature goes through her." Linda's smile cracked for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "How quaint." She walked off, the scent of power trailing behind her like expensive, suffocating perfume. Mia exhaled slowly. "Was that supposed to intimidate me?" Alex smirked. "She intimidates everyone, except, apparently, you." "No," Mia said flatly. "I've cleaned floors dirtier than her attitude." He laughed, but Mia's face turned serious. "Alex, you can't let people like that reshape what we're building. Not for a bigger donation, not for a headline." "I know," he said, his expression sober. "I won't." She studied him for a moment. "Good. Because this movement isn't about ego, it's about equity." Later that night, Samuel Sterling arrived with Marcus. The room seemed to soften as soon as he entered. Dressed in a tailored gray suit and holding Mia's arm with a quiet pride, he no longer trembled when strangers approached. He no longer looked like a man searching for his name. He looked like someone who had found his way home again. The crowd clapped as he took a seat of honor next to Mia and Alex. When the microphone was passed to him for a brief remark, he stood with surprising strength. "I don't remember everything," he began, his voice slow but steady. "But I remember her." He looked directly at Mia. "She saw me when I couldn't see myself. Not as a problem, not as a patient, as a man." A quiet hush fell over the grand hall. We forget, in our suits and our speeches, that sometimes the greatest kindness is simply sitting beside someone without asking them to perform. He finished, his voice thick with emotion. She saved me, not with medicine, with soup and silence. The applause was thunderous. After the gala, Mia stepped outside for a breath of cool night air. The city buzzed around her. The low hum of cars, the faint sound of music from a jazz bar down the block, the smell of roasted peanuts from a street cart nearby. Marcus joined her, unbuttoning his collar. That speech? Woo! You got the old man sounding like a poet laureate. She chuckled. He's been reading poetry lately. Marcus leaned against the stone railing. You know, people are already saying you should run for office. I don't do politics. Sure you do, he countered. You just do it with food, care, and blunt honesty. She smiled, then looked up at the stars beginning to peek through the city haze. I don't want power, Marcus. I want presence, real presence. People who show up, who sit in the dirt with you when you fall, and walk beside you when you rise. He looked at her, his expression quieter now. You think the world's ready for that? I think the world's starving for it. That night Mia returned home to find a note slipped under her door. No name, just a single line written in firm, elegant handwriting. The world only changes when ordinary people choose to see each other. You saw me. That changed everything. A.S. She read it twice, then folded it and tucked it into the back pocket of her journal, right next to her mother's favorite recipe for peach cobbler. Across town, in a penthouse suite lined with windows overlooking the harbor, Alex Sterling stood at his desk, staring at a set of blueprints. It wasn't for a new app or a tech product. It was for a new facility, part community center, part elder care hub, part sanctuary. At the top of the plans, one name stood in bold letters, the Carter Center for Human Dignity. He tapped the name once with his finger, then picked up the phone. Get me Mia Carter, he said to his assistant. I want her to design this from the ground up. No board, no politics. Her vision, her call. And for the first time in a very long time, Alex Sterling smiled. Not the smile of a man who had won something, but the smile of a man who had finally started to understand what really mattered. Because dignity, like love, could never be given. It could only be returned.